So the other interesting thing too is that going back to him letting Jean go, he also lets the kitten go too.
Yeah.
And so yes, he's losing his mind at the end where
Feed me a stray cat. Yeah.
yeah, he said, "Feed me a stray cat." He tries to put the kitten's paw into the ATM. The old lady says, "What are you doing?" He shoots the old lady, but lets the cat go. And previously, when he meets the homeless guy on the street, who he stabs to death, he also kills the dog, like in that scene. So it's a weird, like, again, I think it's just like it's a play on him looking at the world around him and reflecting that. And I think that's kind of like I probably didn't say that as well before, but just kind of saying, so this is bad, so therefore I don't want to be that. This is rewarded with money and power and status, so I want that. I'm going to act that way.
Sure.
And it's a like he is a satirical reflection of that emptiness and that that horrible world that he's kind of a part of. I think it's a pretty, again, it's like it's so hard to balance that with a level of dark humor where you are laughing and then horrified the next scene. Like, for instance, like, people laugh in this movie. I laugh in this movie. Don't get me wrong, for sure. And I laugh, like, I come from a school of thought that, like, when something is preposterous, it's funny. So when something's so over the top, like, it's funny because nobody would actually be like that, or maybe they are. And if they are, equally, like, it can be equally hurtful to people, but also, like, who would want to be that? Like, who would want to be that vile and despicable and horrible? I think you watch shows like that all the time, like, you know, Succession or, The Sopranos, Breaking Bad, that sort of stuff, where it's like, these are horrible people that are, like, morally, decaying inside or corrupted. And you don't have, and what are they though? Are they just inherently bad or evil, or are they a reflection of, like, is it nurtured by the horrible, corrupt, decaying world around them? And I think that Patrick Bateman is probably, like, one of the best examples in film of doing that in such a way that it creates this sense of, you would never want to be like this person, but perhaps, and it's to 11, it's to, whatever. This is an extreme example. However, is it somewhat reflective of you looking around your own environment and saying, what is decaying around me?
Yeah.
And is it affecting me? Am I a reflection of that? So very, very interesting. I felt like, it's kind of one of those movies where every time I watch it, I pick up on something new.
Yeah. I love the scene when he's doing the whole, like, when he's running around through the office buildings right before he does his big confession and he's having that shootout with the cops. Again, moments that are not funny, but are really just bizarrely funny. Is when he shoots the car explodes and he looks at the gun, like, doesn't understand why it blew up a car, because why did it blow up the car? He shot the car once and it just blows up. And it's little moments like that. And again, when he's running around through the building and he shoots the security guard, he runs back through the door and shoots the janitor, and, like, it's those moments of absurdity. Yeah.
So the reason, so I've thought about that too. A lot of people think that the movie is all in his head because of that scene of he shoots the cop car and it is this massive explosion and he looks at the gun. And obviously that tied with his confession and the chat that he has with the lawyer at the restaurant the next day.
Right.
And of course, the closing line, this confession has meant nothing. None of this happened. The other thing, so I really want to touch on this because I think this ties into a lot of the stuff we've been saying and discussing on the show, is that so at the time he goes into a building. Where am I going to start this? This is where I kind of, like, put a lot of stuff together. He goes into the building and he looks at the guard and he shoots the guard in the head. It's because he's in the wrong building.
Yeah.
It's because he's going to his work and he's gone into the wrong building and everything looks the same. And that's
the guy even says, like, "Oh, hello, Mr. Smith." Like, he doesn't even acknowledge it. Yeah.
Right. So, which is another tie into the fact that, like, everyone thinks that everyone else is somebody else. Like, everyone looks the same. Nobody has an actual identity. No one has a sense of self in the film. everyone is just a cookie cutter, a copy of somebody else that came before them or that they work with or whatever.
Yeah.
So again, nobody realizing where Paul Allen is, even though he is like probably decomposing in a bathtub in Hell's Kitchen,
Yeah.
which is what's part of the confession, which you assume is true because we know the confession is true. But so it was that also as well, that everything kind of looks the same. Like for instance, like all the murders take place in Paul Allen's apartment too. So and this is so this is a brilliant scene that I had never really clued in on, and I always had gone back to it looking at it the wrong way. So I always felt like, so if you watch the movie intently, like if you really watch the film, he doesn't commit any of the murders in his own apartment. Other than I think I can't remember if the two prostitutes are in his apartment. I think they are. I think, but
The
again,
first time, but then he comes back and actually kills them in Paul Allen's apartment. She said, "This is nicer than your last place," and he's like, "No, it's not."
Because he says, "This is my other apartment," or my new apartment or something.
Yeah.
So, and all the dead bodies are in there. So when Christy runs around the apartment trying to get out, there's dead bodies in the closet. All the dead bodies are in Paul Allen's apartment. So he's been using Paul Allen's apartment as his kind of his kill room. So when like he goes back, so he makes the confession on the phone at his office. He goes back home, gets up in the morning, he leaves the apartment and he goes back to Paul Allen's apartment. And so there's no distinguishing about like how much time has passed. You assume it's the next day. So he goes into Paul Allen's apartment, checks the closet, and there's the bodies that are there before are gone. And and the real estate agent comes in, and this is a real credit to Mary Harron too, for this is expert directing. Is that she comes over and says, "Are you my 2 o'clock?" And he says, "No." And he goes, and then she's like, "Oh, did you get my did you see the ad in the Times?" He's like, "Oh, yes, that's right. I saw the ad in the Times." She goes, "There was no ad in the Times." And as she says that, she takes a step backwards, like, and so she realizes that he's the killer. Like she realizes that he's back there to see what's happening. As she says that, she goes, "I really do feel you should go." And she steps back into the shadows, meaning that she's morally corrupt as well. And that she knows what's happened here, but doesn't care. She just wants to sell the condo. She just wants to sell the apartment in New York City. And I was like, holy shit, that's awesome. And if you have a chance to go and watch that scene in the movie, it's so well done. And again, it's like, but you have to like look at it. I'm not saying that people watch, like, I'm not saying I watch movies better than people. That's going to come across like I said that. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying, like, if you're trying to kind of pick up on stuff and how stuff's put together in a film, I was like, oh my God, I've never noticed that before. And it's so good because she's very unassuming. Again, kind of a David Lynchian moment. That moment and the one where he's calling Dorcia for the first time and the guy's laughing on the phone hysterically. Very David Lynchian, which is awesome. But also Mary Harron with her own flair on the film. That's a scene for me that, like, I think I will always remember now.